Hello everyone, Nadeem here with PC.Solutions.Net, and I'm here with Mac. How you doing, Mac?
I'm good. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty good. It's Friday. Fridays are always good.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
um, yeah, I'm kind of tired. I don't know why, but
I'm
I
there
slept
with you.
slept really good yesterday, but I don't know what's going on. Okay. Um, so what do you have for me? It's 4 o'clock, so we better get this finished like 4:30 max.
4:30 max. Okay. Um I know everybody probably was like, man, they talk about security a lot, but with the advent of COVID, we don't really have a choice. A lot has changed. And one of the things that I wanted to see if we can get your insight on passwords. I was reading an article that's talking about how passwords nowadays, for lack of a better term, suck. And you're starting to see a migration away from passwords. How do you feel about that? Because,
Well, so so the problem with passwords is not really that passwords suck. The problem with passwords is that we have so many of them.
that's true.
We're not supposed to share them. We're not supposed to reuse them. We're supposed to have history, so a system remembers last, so many passwords, and we're supposed to change them like every 30 days or 45 days. And we can't use what we've used in the past. It's just, I mean, eventually certain people are going to run out of vocabulary. I mean, there's just so many passwords. So keeping that in mind, what a lot of people ended up doing or started doing is they would have like either a notepad or an Excel file, and they start putting all their passwords in these files, and that's a problem in itself. So somebody just has to get access to that one file, and boom, it's done. They got owned. So
Hmm.
the so that's the problem, and the proliferation of passwords has kind of created this scenario where now having the idea was to have complex passwords and change them every so often, and that'll make things secure. Well, it had the opposite effect because people started writing them down and people standardize them, right? So like somebody might have a password, like this is my password 001, and they'll just go down serially just to make little incremental changes. So they'll go 001, in 45 days they'll change it to 002 or
That's true.
003. So at the end of the day, they start getting pretty easy to guess now because there are so many entities, so many passwords. So what people will do is they will use the same schema that they use to create a password across multiple entities. So your email password is going to be very similar to your LinkedIn password, which is going to be very similar to your Facebook password, which is going to be very similar to your Twitter password. I mean, there's just all these. And then your Office Active Directory, you log into your Office using a remote desktop or whatever. That's password is going to be similar. So if somebody gets one of these entities, access to one of these entities, they can pretty much guess a lot of the
Th-
other entity
Yeah.
passwords. So they're going to have access to pretty much everything you have. So that's the problem with passwords. The other side of the equation is, some people still grapple with this situation. How do you create secure passwords? But that
Hmm.
that we can teach people how to do that. That's not as hard. But then, even if people are creating, complex secure passwords, the problem still is uh, what might seem secure to somebody may not be very secure to a hacker whose job is to get inside your head and figure out how you're creating passwords. Now, so when I say a hacker, some of these guys are, I mean, they have so much experience
Yeah.
that they can kind of talk to a person for like 5 minutes and give you a list of schemas how they would generate their password, and one of those schemas will fit 100% to what your password is. I mean, these guys, these this is their livelihoods. These guys are really good. So in this day and age, You have to have some sort of a secure password manager.
Yeah.
You just can't get around it.
Yeah.
Now, let me give you an idea. So in the recent past, Microsoft used to say for Office 365, you have to change your password every 45 days. That was a default, and you have to have a complex password. Well, now Microsoft is saying that this is a notice on Microsoft's site itself that says, please disable password expiration as it is not secure. It's like, whoa, last, 2 months ago, that was the most secure way to do it.
Uh,
What is secure now? So it's like, wait a minute, why did you make a 180? So the reason Microsoft's doing this is Microsoft, gives you MFA for free. Any Microsoft Office, yeah, any Microsoft Cloud product, you get MFA for free with it. So what Microsoft is saying is, forget password expirations, disable that, because that's actually making your passwords less secure, because people are starting to reuse their schemas that they're using for other entities, and that's making
yeah.
them less secure. So they're saying, don't expire people's passwords, but rather never expire them, but enable MFA. Now, when you enable MFA, that PIN code that goes out, that's going to change, and that's under system control. So now we're not leaving that up to the user to change that. That PIN code is going to be generated by the system, and that's going to be very hard to guess, because that's going to be a random number generator. So that's going to be really tough to catch. Now, so that's what Microsoft all of a sudden did 180. I mean, it was like, one day they were going 100 miles an hour one direction, and the next day, boom, they're going 100 miles the opposite direction. So, but it makes sense. I mean, we are noticing there's been a lot of research. So the problem is, if you have password expirations, the human nature of it is going to make them less secure.
Mm.
So, and then of course Microsoft, in addition to that, introduced Microsoft Hello, which is their camera-based, bio-based
Yep.
authentication, which some people say they can get around that too, just using some fancy 3D photography and stuff. But needless to say, the password expirations, just get rid of them. Don't expire passwords, but enable some sort of second factor authentication. Even if you have a bio-based authenticator, you should have some sort of a second factor along with that.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
any kind of authentication you have, a second factor that is machine generated is only going to make it that much more secure.
Okay.
The problem with, I think it was the way Samsung implemented their facial recognition in the beginning. That was when the first hack came out for facial recognition, and then it's been replicated, a few times.
Hmm.
But I know the facial recognition on Apple products, the Apple iPhones and iPads and stuff, that is pretty secure. I don't know of a case. I've heard once. I heard a rumor that there were twins, and they were able to log in using each other's facial recognition on iPhones.
Wow.
I've only heard of that once, but then it was kind of refuted. It was somebody just started that rumor, and
Right.
because it's doing a lot more. It's doing IR, it's doing a lot of things that over time, even if somebody was born identical, over time changes happen differently, because everybody's a biological being, so changes happen
Yeah.
differently. So things change in the structure, and things like that. But anyway, so yeah, passwords, disable expiration, have complex passwords. If you use a password manager, pretty much all password managers worth their salt, or worth their weight, however you want to put it, they will have a complex password generator built in. And this is going to be, I'm not talking about 8 character long password. I mean, this is going to be like, a long, like, 20, 30, 40 character password that you're never going to remember because it's machine generated. So get a password manager, start using the password manager's password generation tool, and generate a unique password for every entity that you need a password for. So in other words, don't share passwords. Now all you have to do is secure your password manager. If that is secure, everything is secure. If somebody gets into your password manager, they're going to own your life pretty much.
Mm.
But so that's the name of the game is password manager. Use it for complex password generation. Now there is a third level that's just now coming into market, and that is, since everything is moving to the cloud, most cloud infrastructures and entities and systems have some sort of external authentication protocol built in.
Mm.
So, and I don't want to throw out some fancy terms, but basically what it is that systematically you can securely authenticate one app with another system to another app. So if you're logged into one app, that app knows and has verified your identity. It can securely talk to the other app in another system and say, hey, I've already verified this user. This is who the user says he is. And I know for a fact this is the user who he says he is. So once this information passes from one cloud system to another cloud system, uh, you don't have to authenticate again because the first cloud system has already verified you. Now it can pass that verification information securely to another cloud system. So that's the new thing that's coming up is if we can have some sort of a central or a single place, and that single place can then authenticate us to our 20, 30, 40, 50 other cloud services, then we don't have to log in and remember credentials for all these other cloud systems or any system for that
That's
matter.
nice.
So
That's
if you
really
have
nice.
one place, it's kind of like, in Lord of the Rings, that one ring to rule them all.
One of my favorite movies of all time.
Right? So it's that one application that can solve this problem. You just authenticate once with this one application, and then it handles authentication with everything else. Now, when I say everything else, not only cloud-based systems, but these applications can authenticate using various multiple mechanisms. So they can authenticate with other cloud systems. They can authenticate with your own Active Directory running on your server at your company headquarters. It can authenticate with your personal machine. So if your machine is a standalone machine, let's say your home machine, it can authenticate with that. I mean, pretty much any system in use out there, any recent system, it can seamlessly authenticate. So you just authenticate once, everything else is done for you.
So now it's funny you should mention that. So I'm a bit of a nerd and I'm a crypto enthusiast. So I remember I was removing some Bitcoin from one place to another, and I used this app called Authy. And before it would actually, I sent it to my clearinghouse, and it actually connected the clearinghouse to this authentication app and said, "Are you withdrawing this amount of Bitcoin to this bank?" And I had to press that in order for that withdrawal to even take place. So it's very interesting, the level of security now. And that same app I use for like five different other types of um, um, sites that I go on where, it talks to it and says, hey, is this you just trying to log in? I press
Yeah.
yes, and it lets me in. So it's interesting you say that because that looks like that's about to take hold on a grand scale.
Right, right. And so Authy works with a lot of systems out there. There's a bunch of apps like that, right? So it's a similar system, and I don't want to jump the gun, but we have something in the works. I'm going to talk more about it on Monday. I'm going to, I've already thought about what Monday's video is going to be about. So I'll talk more about it, but we're going to make an announcement. We're going to bring something that's going to make everything easy for you. You know how
So
you know
easy.
that Staples easy button?
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you this easy button. So you just push that button and boom, you know it's gonna make it easy for you. But you know the you know and I'm gonna touch on it a little bit. There is, you know, the user can connect to, you know, in the example of Office 365 or Google or Facebook, any of these apps, you know, Skype, whatever have you. Everything uses, you know, you can enable second factor authentication pretty
Hmm.
much in any application. So connecting from your machine to these other entities, you have second factor authentication.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. That's all well and good. The one weak link is your machine.
Yeah.
Are you logging in with second factor authentication to your machine itself? You
No.
know, and not a lot of companies, I mean, even companies doing, you know, dealing with money and trading and stuff like that, some of those companies I've seen where they are focused so much so highly on security, but they've got tunnel vision, so they're thinking about, we want to secure this app, but they're not thinking about,
The
what about
machine.
the machine the guy sitting in
That's a
front
very
of?
good point.
Who's
Yeah.
going to secure that?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, you know, that's a big hole, a loophole that somebody can use, and it's been used over the years. I mean, all the malwares and stuff like that, where does that go? Where does that, what does that target? End
It's a
user
machine.
machines. Well,
Yep.
there's a reason for that, because they're the least secure things out there, that they're least secure and they're easiest to get into. So the, you know, the thing would be to secure the user interface, and the first user interface is your machine that you log into. Everything else is secondary. You know, you got to log into your machine first. So the thing is, if you can, you know, if you can secure that, whoever can secure that without spending, you know, 50, 60, $70,000, uh, that's going to be the ticket. That's going to be the key. Now, it has been done. I mean, it's, you know, I mean, even 10 years ago, I know there were some companies that had RSA tokens that, you know, you
Yeah.
carried these little tokens with you, and you know, when you try to log into your machine, and you have to punch in that number, and,
Yeah.
you know, the number generator. But, you know, so in this day and age, I don't think all that is necessary. I mean, everybody has a smartphone. That is your authenticator. You
Yep.
know, that smartphone can be your authenticator. And so really, you don't need to build that entire infrastructure. That can be based in the cloud somewhere, right? And next week we're going to make an announcement. We're going to have something that's just going to change the landscape for small business. I
So
mean,
excited about that.
there is, there's just, I mean, for large enterprises, no big deal. You know, they have the budgets to do all of this stuff, but the small business, that they don't. So this is
Yeah.
really going to change the industry. What we're going to announce next week. So stay tuned for that. I mean, it's gonna be awesome.
It's gonna be awesome.
And you know, so we'll talk a little bit more about, you know, on Monday I'll do a video and I'll talk a little bit more about what I mean by the, you know, by that. But let me just you know, share real quick, you know, what I'm talking about when I say, you know, so you have your, you know, cloud systems, and these are, you know, your machine is securely connecting to this cloud system, and you got MFA over there, and then, you know, you have your happy user who's logging into your machine, but this one is not MFA enabled. This one is. So the bottom line is, what the bad guys are going to attack is right here, right? So, and I don't know if you can see the whiteboard or not, but that's where the bad guys are going to attack, is
Hmm.
in that red circle, before the user even, you know, logs into their local interface, their local machine. So you can secure over here all you want, uh, and the bad guys know you've secured that part, so they're going to attack where that red circle is, and that's what we need to secure. That is the little area that is not secure. Large enterprises can secure that. Small business, it's very hard to secure that because the budget will just be the budget for your entire IT infrastructure for a small company. It just doesn't make sense. So that's that's what we are going to secure is that red circle, and we're gonna go way beyond that. We're gonna, I mean, it's gonna be a revolutionary thing. I mean,
I
it's gonna
think it
be
is.
huge. It's gonna be
I think it
huge.
is. I think it is.
and,
It's
and I don't
so,
want to say too much because I start talking about stuff and I'll just keep, I'll just spill all the beans.
well, the beautiful thing about it is that after you talk about it on Monday, I'm excited about it because it's definitely it's robust. I mean, it's needed. Let's just say that. I'm not going to say much more than that, but it is going to be a game changer, especially like you were saying before, for the smaller businesses that have to deal with these types of issues and don't really necessarily have the budget for it. Now there's a service, but that's all I'll say.
Yeah.
That's all I'll
and
say
and
about
and
that.
I mean, it's like, you have 20 users or 30 users. You don't have 70, $80,000 to spend on just an authentication system.
Right.
Much less if you have, what if you have 5 users? Well, you can't spend 70 grand on just an authentication system.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably your entire budget for all your machines, at that level. So, but yeah, so this is going to be, I think this is going to be huge. and
I think so.
and you know it's like, one of the guys I was working with, they this was a construction company. They built that La Torreta resort up in Conroe, and I was sitting, in front of the owner, and there was a subcontractor. This is when they were just building it. There was a subcontractor, and there was a discussion going on. I just walked in. We had a meeting, so I just walked in, and there was a discussion going on. The subcontractor told the owner, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I know somebody dug and laid a line in the wrong place, but it's no big deal. We'll dig it up again and we'll put it in the right place." And the owner said something very interesting, and I was just standing, I had just walked in. I was just standing on the side, and I listened to it, and it just sat with me, and it just clicked with me. And the owner said, "Look," he turned to the subcontractor and he says, "Look, in this day and age, I can run a friggin' line to Hawaii. That's not the problem. The problem is who's gonna pay for it."
Right.
So that's the problem is, the technology exists today in this day and age to do anything we want. The thing that makes that decision, the make or break thing is how much is it going to cost.
yeah.
And so if we can reduce that part, the cost part, then I think, the that's where the key is. Yeah, and all those, small businesses, they're not averse to having a good security system in place. It's just, what is it
It's
going to
just a month.
cost,
Yeah.
and
Just a
who's going to
month.
pay for it,
Yeah.
right? So that's what it boils down to. But I think that, it is a very needed solution in this space. It's one of those, like I tell people, it's one of those areas that keep me up at night. We are securing, we are securing these, systems that, we are securing all these areas right here, but then we have this big area right here that is insecure, and the bad guys know that,
Yeah.
and that's what they're going to target.
Yeah.
They're not going to try to target, for example, they're not going to try to target Microsoft 365 and try to break in, because, I mean, they're like, why do I need to do that? I can just break into that machine that's wide open with the budget of a couple of $100 a month, if that. You know,
That's
why would
true.
I try to break into like a $50 billion budget? So
And the worst part about it, to what Nadeem is saying, unfortunately, it's not even the bigger companies that catch the brunt financially as far as these attacks are concerned. It's the smaller companies. They're the ones that really get hit hard and often and end up losing a lot of money. I think I saw some ridiculous figure that I want to say 30% of companies that suffer some type of attack end up not making it out of it or end up closing.
Yeah, yeah, small. So that's, that's overall. In
Mm,
small business, I think the number is like 70% of
jeez.
70% of companies that get hit by a disaster. So that's a disaster. So, not just security, but also there could be natural disaster or whatever.
Yeah.
70% of small business that get hit by a disaster are unable to recover. They eventually go out of business. Uh, Now, the smaller businesses are targets because nobody pays attention to small business, right? Everybody's paying attention to the Shells and the Exxons and all of these. Nobody pays attention to small business. Number two, there is no legal requirement for small business to report breaches. So we don't hear about
Mm.
them. When a big hospital in LA gets breached, pun intended here, when a big hospital in LA gets breached, they have to reveal, by law, they have to reveal and report the breach. But when a small business gets hit with a breach, they don't have to say anything. They can
No.
just shove it under the carpet
Yeah.
as long as they can stay in business. But most of the times, they will not be able to stay in business if that breach occurs. It's like I know I've given this example before. This large publicly traded insurance company that we do some work for, and I was talking to the VP over there, and uh, they use the know before, which uses have I been pwned on the back end.
Hmm.
um, you know Terrible system to use. It's just so many. I'm not going to go into that, but anyway. So I was talking to the VP, and I was telling her that, hey, by the way, the system that you're using, it is using the free have I been pawned service on the back end. So, but you guys are paying for this, and she didn't know that. She said, "Oh well, our IT guys have hashed it out. It must be good." And then I ran their domain check through our system, and I found a bunch of breaches, that actual credentials that were out in the open that they did not know about. And she stopped me right there. She stopped me
Mm.
right there. She was like, "I don't want to see that." She was like, "Don't show me that, because if I see that, then I have to report it." And she was like, "We need to put your system in place first, secure everything, and then you can show me what it is." Because I told her, I was like, "Look, I'm detecting like 12 breaches. You guys are not showing anything." And she was like, "12 breaches? Well," and it was like, it's like a forest fire on their side, because 12. I mean, even if one breach occurs, they have to report it.
Ported, yeah.
They have to report it to SEC requires them to report it. So, and she didn't want to hear it, because she was like, "Well, let's put the system in place first." And now all of a sudden it was a priority to put that system in place, because
Yeah.
she knew there were breaches, but I didn't give her the exact info. So, because had she known more, she would have had to report it,
Yeah.
and that would have been all over the news. I mean, that's big time, right? But anyway, the small business, there is no requirement. So a lot of small businesses where there are breaches and things like that, they never get reported. These businesses, they usually will just go out of business when something like this happens, because their users are not dumb. Their users will realize, hey, I only use these credentials with so and so company. If it got leaked, then I know where. I'll give you another example. This happened with one of our guys. I think it happened with Kaleem. So he used a third party to set up an account to order some stuff. And what he does is he always uses a unique email address for each company that that he orders anything from. So he knows exactly which company released or sold his information, because that email will come into a specific email address.
Wow.
So he placed an order. Within a week, he started getting emails like from third parties. He reached back out to that company, hey, there's been either a breach on your side, or you sold my credentials. And the company said, "Oh, no, no, we never sell, look at our terms of service. We never sell, blah, blah, blah." And it was like, Okay, that's fine. If you don't sell it, then there has been a breach. It was, oh no, there has been no breaches. And then he told him his system, how he creates a unique password for every company. And then he was like, well, now you tell me, what do you think? And there was like, we're going to have to investigate this.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, that's when the light bulb went off, and it was like, well, this guy knows what he's doing. We gotta figure this out. Now, these guys at the front lines may not have known, and the guys higher up may have known that there's been a breach, or they may have known that they've signed a deal with a shady third party to sell user credentials. Who knows? But the bottom line is that
Mm,
it happens, and people need to secure their employees, their infrastructure, especially if you are a small business, because that's the prime target for hackers and scammers out there. Especially right now, when so many of your users are working remotely from home, they're taking their machines home, or they're logging in from their home machines.
yeah.
Here's an example. Let's say you allow somebody to log into their work machine from home. You don't know if that person has saved credentials on their home machine. You don't know if that person has any kind of lockout policy on their machine. So if they walk away for 10 minutes, their machine will automatically lock up the desktop. You don't know if there's like two or three kids hanging around, and the person behind that machine goes and fixes lunch for the kids who are screaming, and while they're making lunch, the kids are on that machine that is connected to the office machine. You don't know any of this.
Yeah.
So there's got to be a way to secure this, and come next week we're gonna reveal the way to do that, and it's
Can't
gonna
wait
be
for that.
awesome.
Yeah. Well, that's all our time. I don't want to, because we could definitely keep talking about this, but
Oh
I
yeah,
appreciate
I'll
you.
keep going on this, but yeah, it's we're 6 minutes over, so I think we'll wrap it up. But yeah, stay tuned for Monday. I'm gonna do a little more reveal on Monday, but the big reveal is gonna be probably around maybe mid to end of next week. But we'll get it figured out. Now, some of the customers out there I may have already talked to, so they already have a good idea of what is gonna be. Well, they don't have a good idea of what it's going to be. They have a good idea of what it's going to do, but they don't have a
Dude,
good idea of what it's
right.
going to be. So stay tuned for that, and everybody have a good day, and be safe out there. Mac, you have a good day and be safe out there as well.
You too, sir. Bye,
Bye bye.
guys.